everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us, having a couple of beers, having some conversations, and just having a good time. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good today. It's a better day today than it has been some other days this week. So I've had some dental issues.
Challenges.
Yes, it's been a challenging week, yes.
I saw someone make a comment talking about insurance and like dental insurance, and it's like my insurance company considers teeth luxury bones that I have to pay extra
yes.
for. I was like, yeah, absolutely.
That very much seems to be the case. My teeth have not been traditionally the best, and I thought I haven't done as good about keeping them up as maybe I should, and some people do, but I never thought I did badly. But the amount of money it's cost me indicates that I've not done as good a job as I thought. Or it means I'm a good sucker, and there's a lot of dentists out there with nice cars and boats.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do your teeth feel luxurious now, like the luxury bones that they are?
So, no, not really.
Okay.
They're a little sore, to be honest, but not nearly as sore as they were. So I'll just take not having screaming pain as a
good
win.
Start. It's a good start. Yeah. Nate, how you doing?
Doing well. Happy to be here. Ready to talk about some beer news.
About beer. Talk about beer. That's what we do here most of the
Drink
time.
some beer. Yeah.
Most of the time we do. Guys, I'm going to start off. I got a question because as I poured my beer today, I got a lot of head out of it because I'm careful with the way I'm specific in the way I pour my beer. And I saw a post recently where someone shared a video from a Japanese bar, and the Japanese love their beer. They get pretty pomp and circumstance with it, but they poured the beer a few different ways. And in the first video that I saw, they had a long faucet on the tap, and they put it way down in the glass and tilted the glass and used the utmost care to make sure there was not an ounce of foam on the top of that glass. And they did the boss pour on there. They took it right to the top, and he's got a little bucket of water. He dips it in to get any off, and a little knife to scrape the top there. So you've got a very full black glass of beer with zero head. Then he did another one where he put the spigot back down in there, the faucet back down in there, and went about 3/4 of the way, and then lightly pulled the faucet to generate foam and capped that with foam. And then he did another beer where he poured it a little harder and foamed up in that. But what's your preference? Nate, we'll start with you, man. How do you like your beer poured, or what do you consider the right way to pour a beer?
So I don't like the boss pour, but I also don't like it where like the Milko pour where it's mostly foam and it like slowly settles out. I'm not as big of a fan of that. I like somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
I like a good healthy layer of head on top of my beer. Because I if there's no foam, I feel like a lot of that gas is trapped in the liquid, and then I'm going to be bloated, and I'm not going to have as pleasant of an drinking experience.
I would agree with that. Brian, what are your thoughts there?
I want a boss pour, but I want 2 glasses to go with it so I can pour half into the other glass and then have 2 beers.
So you want all the liquid you can get, but
exactly. I prefer a good amount of head on it, and if I get one, and there's places they mean well because there are people out there that get angry if they see the heads like that's not beer. I'm like, well, it is sort of yes, but so I'll get places where you get the shaker pints full up to the top. There's zero head on it. And they've taken all the care in the world to make sure that they get you that ice cold pint with no head on it. And I'll drink a good amount off it, and I'll grab a utensil and I'll give it a stir and it aggravate it and get some head on the top, because there's a lot of aroma and flavor compounds. Aroma drives flavor, and there's a lot of that in the head. And I want that. That's what I want. Like when you don't do that, it's trapped in the beer, and you wind up all your belches will smell wonderful like hops, but you really won't taste those. That's not where you want to taste them. You don't want to taste them coming back up. You want
the
to taste
return trip
going down. Yes. So that's right. I prefer a good amount, perhaps slightly excessive, but the Milko pour is only for when I really want to do the whole silly thing of drinking a bunch of foam. But yeah, a lot of foam for me.
Yeah. That's you and I went to this little, I think it was kind of half Irish, half English, I guess, UK inspired pub. And they poured the beer like the boss pour pint glass. And surprising, actually, coming from a British pub, that they poured it that way. but it tasted lifeless. There was nothing to it, no character. It didn't taste right on your palate. Nate, like you said, if you pour it like that, all the carbonation that's in that beer is in the beer. And when you put it in your stomach, it's going to expand there. You're going to get all gassed up. Like you said, burping in that. And you were talking about taking a utensil and giving it a stir, Brian. You could even do something as simple as just dunking a straw down in there and giving it some nucleation points, and it's gonna fizz up. But it definitely tastes better if you break some of that carbonation out of suspension in the liquid. But I guess not everybody thinks that. So if you're a person that likes to go out and likes to see your pint glass filled to the top, just think about you're missing out on some of the sensory experience of the beer there. Because they most definitely try it next time. If you go out and you get a full pour and you're thrilled because your pint glass is filled to the brim, drink a little bit, give it a stir and bring some head out in there, or get you another glass and do a little pour over to get that, and then give it another sip. I think you'll see that it's different. It is different with that head on there.
I will frequently, when I'm drinking a beer that doesn't have a lot of head, I will agitate it as I'm drinking, give it a swirl. And that continues to develop the aroma, make it taste like the first sip, as much as possible the whole way through.
First sip.
Yeah, exactly.
Good stuff. Well, speaking of beers and pouring beers and all that, let's get into our beers of the week. Nate, what the heck are you drinking this week?
So I'm drinking a beer that Brian actually was a little jealous that I had.
Yeah.
He decided to DM me on Discord about it, but from Halfway Crooks right here in Atlanta, I'm drinking their Whole Cone Active Low, which is an unfiltered German Pilsner. I managed to make it out to the brewery a couple of weeks ago, Party Nate, and we snagged a 4-pack of this on the way out the door. It's really delightful. A little lower on the carbonation, but, being in package, talking about our little foam talk, but just a really wonderful drinking experience.
They do a couple of those whole cone beers. I know they have a Oktoberfest Marzen, I believe it is, or that they do whole cone, and people wait. Can't wait for that to come out each year. I'll have to
fabulous.
Try and get some of that for sure. Brian, what are you sipping on?
So because of the aforementioned dental issues, I have been on some interesting pills, and I don't want to. I'm trying not to ruin my my liver too quickly, or kidneys or whatever gets ruined. So I've got a little theme going on. I started off with a non-alcoholic ginger ale highball, which was a 5-ounce can of Fever Tree ginger ale, 2 ounces of lemon juice, and a couple dashes, actually 3 or 4 dashes of orange bitters, and acceptable. It felt cocktail adjacent, probably not my preferred profile, but I happen to have these ingredients here and I wanted something, so I went with that. I am currently drinking a Deschutes non-alcoholic black beet porter, which is quite nice, and I have a can of Guinness Zero, and it's a little older, and I'm hoping it's still good. So I may be getting into that next, or I might just open another NA black beet porter. Either way, not sure which.
There's only one way to find out if that Guinness is good, Brian.
Yeah, I may do that test over the sink in the kitchen, but it's chilled, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Yeah. Cool. Well, for my beer this week, I have one. I got a little care package from Deschutes today, and they have launched a Kernza lager and a Kernza in a golden brew. So this is a collaboration with Patagonia, who you may know from all their clothing and stuff. They're a very environmentally conscious company. And I think we've probably mentioned before, Patagonia also does 10 Seafood that Brian and I have enjoyed. So they're into a few things that we enjoy. But both of these beers, both the lager, the Kernza lager, as well as the NA Golden Brew, are organic. And the NA Golden Brew is the first certified organic NA beer brewed in the U.S. And we've talked a little bit about Kernza before. The beer names is from the primary grain that they're using in this beer. And Kernza is derived from intermediate wheatgrass, is what this is derived from, or that family. And it's a perennial grain, which means it doesn't require replanting every year. It's got a very deep root system that helps improve soil health, prevent erosion, and captures carbon, sequesters carbon there. Very nutritional. It's got protein. It's got fiber. It's got antioxidants. And it's versatile, can be used in breads, pastas, pastries, and surprisingly, beer as well. So it's a very environmentally friendly grain. And it can help. It's drought tolerant. It grows in harsh conditions, and it's really good for the environment. And this is something that both Patagonia and Deschutes are very big about. And Patagonia has partnered with a couple other breweries to do other Kernza brews there. But in addition to the Kernza, this also has regenerative organic certified rye, organic hops, and organic two-row barley. So it's got a lot of good stuff, and they're good for the environment, organic. And they said they're really, this is a mission. They want to encourage other breweries to be more conscious of the environment that we're working with, so it sticks around and we can keep growing grains for beer and all of that. And this is going to be widely distributed. So if you get Deschutes in your area, then you should see this available in your area. If you don't get Deschutes, as I mentioned, there are some other breweries that Patagonia has partnered with to do the Kernza beers. And I think Talia Beer Company, as well as Dogfish Head, I think was another one. And the brewery whose name I always mispronounce, Trogs,
Trogs,
that
I
does
think.
that. Trogs,
yeah.
Trogs that does it as well. So anyhow, this is what I'm getting into it right now. And my first experience, this is tasty, but I can tell that there's a grain in here that isn't mainly barley. There's a little bit of a brightness to it that I wouldn't expect. I don't want to go as far as saying tartness. I almost said tartness, but I wouldn't really say tart. But it's a very crisp, very clean beer. You can tell that there is something in here that's a little non-traditional. There's rye in there, so you get a little spice from rye. But it's tasty. It's an interesting beer. And I'm drinking the lager right now, and we'll try the NA at some point. I should have chilled both of them to kind of see how they were next to each other. But I do want to share with you guys when we meet up again. So I try not to drink through all of them there too much. But that is Kernza, and that's my beer for the week.
I wonder if that would be suited to like a Goza or something, if it's already got a little brightness to it, like a little added touch to like a Berliner or a Goza that could benefit from a little extra interesting character, in that direction.
I could see that. I could see it definitely working in that style, that it would have the base to where that may work with it pretty well. We'll have to see if we can get somebody to do that then. See if we can check it out for sure.
Yeah.
Anybody's listening, give it a shot and we'll try it out.
Good stuff. Well, Brian, another thing, big event coming up. Did you see, Brian, that the Black Tuesday release is coming soon?
I did see that. Yeah, that's their 15th anniversary thing, right? $150 to get into that thing. Did you see that? It's the event, significant.
It did look like they had quite a bit going with it, though. On a 15th anniversary, I'm sure they're going to do it up right. That's we used to get Black Tuesday about every release, and it kind of got me nostalgic for the old days of craft beer, where a beer like Black Tuesday, they did an online release for the people that weren't local, and you'd get on there and the servers would be maxed out. Maybe you'd get some, maybe you wouldn't. It was always pretty exciting to see if we could score a few bottles of that one.
Yeah, I'm looking at the beer menu, and I didn't count, but it looks like it's 20 or 30 different pours, and they've got some barrel pours going on too, like Grand Reserve. Remember I think the Rutherfords, was that the hybrid like wine Black Tuesday thing that we had that I had the bottle of?
Was that it? I didn't remember the name, but I know the one you're talking about there.
That's a trip. It's definitely not very Black Tuesday. It's something else, but they're pouring that as well. I'd consider drinking that again just because it was so out there. But it looks like a heck of a deal. I'd love to go to that thing.
Was that the one you're talking about? Was that the one that was like the beer wine hybrid, but it was aged in Black Tuesday barrels or something like that? Because I know I saw Black Tuesday on there, and I expected more Black Tuesday and less wine, but it was the other way around.
Yeah, I think maybe it's called. I'm looking. It's like maybe it's Thomas Rutherford. I think that's what it was. So the Rutherfords might be a different animal, but yeah, Black Tuesday co-fermented with Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc grapes from Napa Valley and packaged in a Bordeaux glass. Okay, I think that might have been the one that we had. So it sounds like it was heavily used in grapes, but maybe I've got the wrong one. So
okay, the one we had was very winey for sure.
But not bad.
Not bad. I think I just went into it with my palate expecting something different there. But Black Tuesday is a great beer. Boozy boozy, 19%, 20%. It gets up there really good.
Mm-hmm.
But well, Brian, NFL season has started. And again, I know that always gets you nice and excited, but I think the important thing is we have some opening weekend stats from the NFL season opener. Beer stats.
Yes, we do some beer stats, and we love our beer stats. According to data from Beer Board, which is a firm that collects data, draft beer reclaimed its volume that it lost in last year's NFL opening weekend, which is to say that draft beer sales were up 8% this year. The same weekend last year, they were down 8.3%, so they made up for that. During the first Monday Night Football broadcast of the season, draft beer volume increased 2.5% compared with the first Monday Night Football of 2023. The lead draft beer brand nationwide was Michelob Ultra, which increased its volume about 13% year over year. And in the second spot was Miller Lite, which was up just a little over 0.5%. And in the third spot was Modelo Especial with a bullet up about 53% from last year.
Wow.
Yeah. So 53%. That grew huge.
Oh.
Light lagers were the best-selling style on draft and recorded a 7.6% increase year over year, followed by regular lagers, just good old lagers, which were up 22.5%. And that was largely boosted by Modelo. IPAs were flat, up just under 0.5%, and were the third best-selling style on draft during this weekend. So there you have it, the stats for NFL opening weekend. And I like that it's all going in the right direction. It seems like it's going in a good direction anyway.
I wonder why it had such a hit last year, because really football and beer kind of go together. Even if beer in general is not doing well compared to other beverages, I don't think a lot of guys are looking for a great bottle of Cabernet to celebrate, to watch with the game, drink with the game. But
were people drinking more? Because I know that were people drinking more seltzers last
maybe
year
it was. Maybe we're
this year. Maybe that was more of a thing. Because I kind of feel like that. When did they kind of die off? Because there was a year or two where everybody was all about seltzers, and lately the real estate it's been occupying in stores has shrunk. So I'm wondering if some of it was that last year, and people are like, you know what? I'm tired of White Claw. I'm going back to beer. Yeah. And
seltzer had its 15 minutes, right?
Yes. I'm ready for that to be gone. Give me back the cooler real estate for beer. Nobody needs that sugar water chilled.
Get back to beer. You're going to come back, go play with your seltzer for a season, and then come on back around. Nate, you're going to say something?
No, I'm good.
No, good there. So, I'm curious to see. We saw a little bit of positive news, I guess, related to sports and beer. So, keep watching your team. I think it's a win-win, because if your team is winning, you're drinking to celebrate. And if your team's losing, you're drinking to drown your sorrow. So either way, beer is always the winner, no matter which team wins. Beer.
I wonder which you drink more to. Like, I think you drink more for the pain, but I don't know for sure. It depends on how good the win is.
I think we need another study there. All these people that study stuff out there, find out if people if they typically drink more when their team's winning or when their team's losing, and see what the results of that are. If you're let us know. What do you feel if you're a football fan? Let us know. Do you typically are you celebrating and chugging beers when they're doing well, or are you just sitting back and sulking and chugging beers when they're getting their tails whipped there? Be interesting to find out.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm surprised nobody's done that. There's got to be a study out there. Somebody has to have done that. Do you drink more when you're winning or when you're losing? Yeah, that had to have been done by somebody.
Yeah, it would have to be. It seems like something that we'd want to know there. Well, Brian, some more news. This has been brought up several times, and it's just not going anywhere, but it's back. It's back, Brian. It's back. The United States Postal Service, USPS Shipping Equity Act, was reintroduced in the U.S. Senate. And for those that aren't aware, you're technically not allowed to ship alcohol via the United States Postal Service. But Brian, they're trying to change it, man. What is up with that?
Yeah. Senators from Oregon, New York, Washington, and Vermont reintroduced the bill. Like you said, according to the Brewers Association, it would allow the USPS to ship alcohol to legal drinking age adults in states that have already legalized the private shipping of alcohol. The act would not change any federal or state tax collection or regulation of alcohol. It would not inhibit the state or the federal government from doing anything with alcohol and how they tax it. So that's the thing. If it's already legal to send it by FedEx or somebody else, UPS, then USPS wants a shot to carry it. So it would, of course, implement safeguards such as identification checks to prevent minors from receiving alcohol. Currently, 11 states and Washington, D.C. allow interstate shipping of beer by breweries using private carriers. This legislation would simply allow USPS to be an option for those people that are shipping beer. The Brewers Association encourages their members to connect with their elected officials and ask them to support the newly reintroduced legislation. We're talking about the Senate bill, but I believe there's also one in the House that needs some support. So if you have a few minutes, go send a message to an elected official and say, hey, get on it, man. Fix this. Make this happen. It's already legal. Just let the USPS carry the packages too. They could use the money. So that's where we're at with that.
Let them do it. The only problem is USPS sucks, guys. And I'm not trying to be a hater here, but I've had several packages delivered recently, and I ordered one package from a company in Milan, Italy, and they used DHL. 3 days from Milan to my front porch. 3 days from Milan to my front porch. I ordered another package that shipped to me from Nashville, Tennessee. And the last 3 days, the Postal Service has been sending it back and forth between Atlanta and a little place called Palmetto, Georgia, to the depots. And I swear, if you look at the tracking, it's like departed location, arrived at location. I'm like, what are you doing here? So I can get a package from Milan via DHL in 3 days, but if you ship it to me from 200 miles away, it's going to take about 10 days. So it's they're not great, and I think that's been the biggest complaint. So if you want to ship your beer by USPS, go right ahead. I think the option should be there, but man, there's so many better choices than the postal. I just think they don't care anymore. If you've ever been to the post office, I think that's pretty obvious. That they're like, we're a government agency. We don't care. We don't care.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You're not forced to use them, by putting them out there. I think the USPS varies in quality by where you're at, and I got to say it's not been great where I live.
Yeah,
but I think there may be some places where it is a good option, but maybe not here. So
I think they were better at one point. It used to be pretty reliable. That if they said they'd have something in 3 or 4 days, that would happen. But I get tons of notifications. Your shipment is delayed. Your shipment is delayed. Maybe it is just my area, but it definitely seems to happen no matter where it originates from.
Yeah.
Yep, Brian. That's right.
All there is to say about that.
But
I agree.
Again, going off on a tangent there, that's not what this is about. I just decided to rage a little bit. But either way, whether they're great or not, it would be nice if the option was there for them to be able to ship beer.
I definitely agree.
I agree.
I absolutely do.
Brian, moving right along, trying to get ourselves back on the rails here. Something I just found out about recently. I never really thought about it. It makes sense, but French hops, Brian.
Yeah.
And French hop growers, they want a little more love out there.
Hops. I saw this article on craftbeer.com and I didn't even think about France being a hop grower, but maybe we should start doing that. They are the 10th largest hop producer in the world. They grow 2.2 million pounds, or they did this past year, which sounds like a lot. It's a little small when you compare it to the 91 million pounds that was produced by Germany and the 105 million pounds that was produced by the U.S. But the hops from France have gotten the attention of some big name breweries here in the U.S. Oscar Blues, Russian River, and New Belgium. They all brew beers with French hops. Specifically, Fat Tire features Barbe Rouge hops. I think that's how you say it. Okay. And Pilsners from Oscar Blues and Russian River. I believe that's Mama's Little Yellow Pills and STS Lager from Russian River. They use Aramis hops, which I think I've heard of. I didn't realize they were French. And yeah, a lot of people speak well of that as being a great, Pilsner, a great lager hop. So France's best-selling hop is a noble variety called Strisselspalt, which sounds actually kind of like a German one, but It's described as having a distinctive, mild herbal character with relatively low bitterness and is well suited to pilsners. So one of the challenges French hops has faced is their aroma is not typically one of their big selling points. That makes them a little less desirable if you're trying to brew IPAs, and everybody's trying to brew IPAs these days. So they answered that issue with a new hop, and that answer is Elixir. It's a big citrusy hop that was introduced in 2016. And additionally, some regions in France are growing Cascade and Chinook hops, and reportedly the Cascade hops are virtually indistinguishable from the ones you would get from the U.S. So they're producing hops, and apparently they're of good quality. The problem is it's a lot of competition for hops out there, so people don't realize that that's an option. Even in France, they order. And they definitely love our Citra, and they don't have anything quite like that. So we're always going to have that until they can figure out how to grow that there. But they're just. I think this article was written by a French national trying to get the word out. It's like, hey, we've got hops. You should try our hops.
Come over here. I wonder if their hops, their Cascade and Chinook, being indistinguishable from U.S. grown hops, I wonder if that's a net positive or net negative for them, because recently the terroir of certain hops has come into play. More people are looking at it more. So I wonder if they had conditions there that did provide something unique. You know, people have said these are Michigan grown Chinook or whatever, and that they have a particular note. But I guess if the soil doesn't give them anything unique to latch onto, and they're like, oh, well, these are just like these U.S. hops. But I wonder if that might help them out if they did have, hey, we've got Chinook in this. I guess you still want to fit that profile without detouring too much off of that.
I think the point of them growing Chinook and Cascade was more to like, hey, we can grow these here. We have the climate for it. We have the terroir, as you said. We have French brewers that are buying them from the U.S. We can grow it here and sell it to them. So I think that's the idea for that. So they're working on that angle. But that Strisselspalt and the Aramis hops, apparently, they're pretty unique, and the people that brew with them really like them. And I think there's no other hop will quite do what it does. So they do have that going for them. And that's why it's currently being used by a few big name breweries. So.
It sounds like I've probably had some of these French hop beers and just not thought about it, that I just didn't know at the time. Like, what's it, Little Yellow Pills? You mentioned
Little Yellow Pills.
I know I've had that beer before, so I guess I've had it and just hadn't thought about it. But it definitely seems like New Zealand hops. You'll see a lot of beers that say with New Zealand hops, like they make it a point to, if there's anything unique about a beer, then a lot of times they do make it a point to mention that, hey, these are New Zealand hops, these are whatever hops. But I haven't seen anybody really making a big deal. Maybe I just haven't noticed it about French hops.
Yeah, I had no idea. Fat Tire, New Belgium's Fat Tire uses that Barbe Rouge. And it's still, I went and checked the website because they reformulated it recently. Because I'm like, I don't know if this is still accurate information. No, it's still there. It's still one of their, it's not the only hop, but it's one of the hops. And I forget the exact, what it contributes to that. But I think Fat Tire, man.
Crazy. I need to reach out to Stan Hieronymus and get some input from him on French hops, see what he has to say about the industry there and what's going on, because if there's anyone that we know that will know a heck of a lot more about it intimately, it's definitely going to be him.
I was definitely thinking about him when I was reading it. It's like, dang, it's too bad he's not living locally. We couldn't just rope him into the show. But,
hey, let's grab a beer, Stan, and talk about French hops.
He'll have thoughts for sure. So
he will. For sure.
I'm wondering, because this article came out fairly recently, he does that weekly newsletter. I'm looking to see what his take is on it, but I think he's currently running around on assignment doing something, so he hasn't been writing
on assignment.
We'll see what he has to say about it. Yeah.
All right. Well, Brian, why don't we take a little time and thank our awesome sponsor, Truck and Tap?
Yes. So it is the season, the drinking season at Truck and Tap, and that means there's going to be an Oktoberfest party. You need to mark your calendar. Coming up on Saturday, October 5th, all Truck and Tap locations will be celebrating with music, food, Bavarian vibes, whatever that is, probably Lederhosen, I'm not sure, and of course, beer. For all the details, keep an eye on the Truck and Tap website, truckandtap.com, and don't be afraid to click through to their social media accounts for any late-breaking information about the event. But now my beer picks for the last weekend of summer, and it truly is the last weekend of summer. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, my pick is Creature Comfort's Nelson Romance. It's a foeder-aged saison, dry hop with Nelson hops. The word is it's dry, tropical, and refreshing, and it definitely sounds like a winner to me. At the Duluth location, I'm getting a pour of Victory Golden Monkey because you can never go wrong with a monkey. In this case, it's a classic Belgian-style triple, and you need to watch out. It's got 9.5% alcohol by volume, and it's sneaky. It'll get you. In keeping with the season, my list needs a Marzen, so I'm going with Eyinger's Oktoberfest Marzen at Truck and Tap Alpharetta. And finally, at Truck and Tap Lawrenceville, I have to try Printer's Ale PMS 7413. It's a mouthful. It's an orange creamsicle sour, and apparently the name is a reference to the color code that's used in industrial printing for orange. So that's a very interesting one.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And I guess, the thing in Untapped is just a swatch of the orange color that block. Is that color. So, yeah.
Gotcha.
So there you have it. I hope you have a chance to swing by your local Truck and Tap and enjoy this final weekend of summer, or celebrate Oktoberfest, or do both. You do you. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Yep.
Now, Brian, probably not a shocker to a lot of people here with the names of the brewery and the beers, but the Printer's Ale, the name comes from the other business, or the primary business of the owners. So they're printers, so they do. And actually, I believe they said they'd done beer packaging before, like printing beer packaging and stuff. And fun fact, a few years back, we did a collaboration with local artist Catlanta as a fundraiser. And he did a original painting for us that we had some prints made of, and raffled those off, or I think we eBayed them, didn't we? Or just sold them. I think we auctioned the original.
Yeah.
And then just sold the prints, the signed and numbered prints. But Printer's L's printer printed the prints for our printing of prints.
Yes. Print.
Throw it in there one more time. Well, Brian, some bummer news this week. Unfortunately, we do still get a fair amount of that. Weathered Souls Brewing, which we all know from the Black is Beautiful campaign. We've had Marcus Baskerville on the show before. And these guys really made waves, a few years ago, and seem to be doing well, seem to be a growing brewery, and probably know where I'm going with this, but we have heard that the brewery is officially closing their original location.
Yeah, their San Antonio location. They announced it this weekend. When you're hearing the show, it's that's it. They're shutting it down. And like you said, Marcus Baskerville was behind the guy behind Black is Beautiful initiative, which had breweries around the country producing Black is Beautiful beers in an open collaboration with Weathered Souls. And I went out and looked. The website's still up there. So $1 per beer was went to the National Black Brewers Association, which was cool. So Baskerville was trying to find investors to help him buy the brewery outright and officially make it a Black-owned business. And he worked on that for quite a while, but it's been hard to do in the current climate. With beer sales down, and investor money just isn't quite there. So that's off the table. He has left the brewery already, and he was talking about starting a new brewery somewhere in the country, possibly San Antonio. But that vision has evolved into a tap room, lounge, and fried chicken concept in downtown San Antonio at some point in the future. Apparently, he's got a fried chicken recipe that he's been refining for many years, and he thinks it's enough to carry this concept. And I guess there's more money to be found for, if you get a tap room, but also a restaurant and tap room. I guess you're more likely to get investors that way. As for what this means for the Black is Beautiful initiative, unclear. Like I said, the website's still there, and nothing is stopping any brewery from continuing to make the beer if they want, and donate a portion to proceeds if they feel like it. So still doable. I don't know if that's going to be as interesting to do with the brewery closed, but yeah. So unfortunately, they are no more. So I am glad I got to swing by the one time. Yeah,
that's right.
When I was out there,
didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Tough time, man. I really liked it. We were talking about new breweries open and new beers being released, and that we just seem to get a lot of that. And we did talk earlier about the increased sales on NFL opening weekend, so that's all good. But one more story here on declining beer sales and how that is impacting the barley farmers.
Yeah. It's spoiler. It's not great. According to a story from Reuters, declining beer consumption has led to a huge glut of barley in the plain states of the U.S. this is further depressed barley prices, and it has made it difficult for farmers to break even growing barley. The article specifically calls out the growth of hard seltzers as a significant contributing factor. And even though I know hard seltzer growth, I think was down from its peak, I'm still behind blaming hard seltzer for anything that's wrong with this country.
They did it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need barley to make a hard seltzer, though. I looked around, and some breweries actually still, or whoever, beverage companies that make hard seltzers do actually use barley to make it, but for the most part, I think they're just fermenting sugar water. And you don't need barley to make canned cocktails either, RTDs, because those are also hot right now, and those are luring people away from beer. Also, there's a variety of various hemp and cannabis, THC, whatever drinks out there that are luring people away. So there's a lot of competition for beer right now outside of just barley produced things. But also craft brewery closures is not helping, because craft beer typically requires 4 to 5 times as much barley as your mass produced lagers. Your all the beers out there that you typically, they got barley in them, just not very much. The most recent U.S. crop report showed the number of acres for barley has fallen by 22% compared to last year. And supplies of barley in storage on farms are up 51% from last year. And it's the highest since 2010, which is, you can see that's kind of right before things really started taking off again for craft beer. Barley is still selling. It's selling for less than, or $2 less per bushel compared with last year. So it's $5 versus $7. And I guess the moral of the story is either drink a beer, save a farmer, or maybe skip the seltzer, save a farmer. One of those two. So it's rough, because I think most of the barley, most of the crop that the U.S. produces of barley is consumed internally. So it's not like shipped out. So a lot of it's just consumed via beer. So this is rough.
I have, heard before talking about, I've lost my train of thought here. There was a point that I was going to try to make, or at least ramble here, but talking about, farming barley and making beer. Brian, I'm back on track here. You talked about the additional barley needed for a craft beer. I mean, if you've got a 4% lager and you're up to a 6%, I'm sure this isn't exact math, but you're talking 50% more grain there, and you jump up into an 8% or a 12% beer, then you're doubling, tripling what's needed.
Yeah.
And again, we need another study as beer is declining. I mean, we see these stats on what's selling the best, but what kind of beer are people continuing to drink? We keep seeing this about Modelo, about how much market share it's taken. We know it's a lower ABV, and I don't even know, do they brew that? Is that brewed in the U.S. or is that?
You know what? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
I know there was a whole thing with northern Mexico where they were, but I don't think that was Modelo that they were angry about. I think it was stuff being brewed by other companies that were non-Mexican products, and they were angry about all the water usage that was being taken away from Mexico to brew the beers that were then sent to the U.S. So possibly, maybe it's being brewed there. I don't know.
Okay. And Nate, I'm not sure if you know this or not. I know you were in the business, but like Brian was talking about, some seltzers using barley and some not. Does that change how they're classified, like for taxes or anything? Because I know that, like, they're FMBs, flavored malt beverages, if it uses a barley base as opposed to a sugar water. And I'm not sure what category that would put them in, or what difference that makes. Like, I feel like I was talking to a brewer one time that said one of the reasons he did the malt base was because of the way the class that it ended up in or something, but I'm not sure.
I never worked.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I never worked on that side of the business to know the answer to that question.
Okay. I'm curious. I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
I also kind of wonder, they said they put out this blanket statement saying that, craft beer typically requires 4 to 5 times as much malt to produce a beer as like your macro lager. Well,
Right.
Craft has gotten into producing lagers as well, so they are scaling back their consumption. I don't think that necessarily applies. I don't know how much what ABV your active low is, but Nate, I'm sure that's nowhere near as much barley used as the and I don't want to say I'm a hero, but all the triple and double IPAs I drink, I do it to save the farmers, guys.
It's only 4.9%, so not as nearly as much barley required.
I guarantee you it's more than like your Bud Miller or Coors, probably. You know what? And those guys use corn too, so they're mixing some of that in. That maybe they need to stop using so much corn. Maybe that's the solution right there.
More barley, all malt.
Yeah, so I don't think that applies to everything. But if you think about craft beer, typically the 6 to 7% range, then and you're comparing it to like your 4%, half corn lager, then yeah, it makes sense that they would be that much. But with us all loving lagers the way we are these days, that's a bit rough. So we got to go back to making barley wines and big beastly stouts and triple IPAs. We got to do it to save the farmer, folks. We gotta get knuckle down and do it. That's what
we are heading into that season, though. Talking about the fall and winter months and bringing out those big holiday ales and that. So I know it doesn't necessarily impact what people are brewing right now because a lot of those beers are brewed and aged for a while, but we're going to clear some of the inventory out so that they do need to brew more of those big beers. So we'll do our part here over the next few months.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. More quads too. Yeah. Don't want to forget the quads. They're
right.
important.
It's crazy, Brian. You just mentioned it's the last weekend of summer, and as much as they told us summer is over, you're right. Well, I hadn't really thought about it, but we're just we're right on it, man. It is time for autumn and fall, and I'm not a big fan. I like the beers. I need to figure out a thermostat for like the environment, if I could do that, because we had some days this week here where we were in the 50s, lower 50s. Which is crispy in the mornings there. And I think we had a day or two where we didn't even get over 80 degrees. And it wasn't that long ago. We were pounding 100, upper 90s at least. So it's not a fan. For those that aren't aware, I'm not a fan of cold weather.
The 50s are for beer sellers, not for the outdoors. Come on, people.
Right.
Let's get with it. 70s and 80s, that's outdoors.
Exactly.
Keep the 50s with your preserved beers. So I'm not really looking forward to it. I'm not a big fan of being cold. I really would like it to never get. I think I would like it to go from high 60s to mid 80s throughout the year, and like during the winter it could be on the 60s side, and then during summer it could be 85. And I think that would be about ideal for me. I guess this place exists. It's probably called San Diego or something like that.
But San Diego is nice. Yeah. I don't like the oppressive heat. We had some pretty hot days this year, but I don't loathe it the way I do cold temperatures. Like it's hot and I'm like, wow, it's really hot. This is unpleasant. It's really hot. You can get a cold beer, you can do this and that. And I know people talk about they love, I get my big sweatshirt out. I bundle up, I do this, and talking about the backyard fire pits and all that stuff. I know there's lunatics out there that love all of that stuff. So
that's me. That's me.
Hey, do you like the cold? Do you enjoy?
Oh, absolutely. I am all for the cold.
Yeah.
So give me the colder weather. I like Brian's range. Just drop it from 60 to 50, and I'm right there for that. But even the colder stuff, like I can break up my bigger jackets and be way more excited about it. But hey, Tim, there is a saving grace in all of this. Later this week, we're recording midweek, but later in the week, it will be around 90 degrees back here in Georgia.
Yeah,
so
I'll take it. We always get that. What do they call it? False fall and then second summer there a little bit. So
Indian summer.
That is one thing to count on in the South, is that you do get a little bit of that. I've had years ago when I was a kid living in Mississippi, we had Christmas in the mid 70s before, like shorts and t-shirt weather on Christmas Day, which even then I'm like, you know what? All right. I like the warm weather, but this is weird. This is weird.
Yeah. I think there needs to be at least a dip. I want to see, I wouldn't mind there to be a snow on like Christmas Day and maybe the day before and the day after, and like it can be in the 30s at that point, and we'll do that one time, and let's just get back to where we belong.
Give me the white Christmas and then move on out of here.
Yeah.
Follow Santa on the back of his sleigh as Christmas heads out, and we'll be good to go.
I've lived in Georgia for just about 25 years, and I do recall there being several Christmases where it's been 70 degrees on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're wearing shorts and playing football in the dead grass front yard.
Right. Now, see, I remember growing up in the Midwest, though, and I don't think I didn't hate it then. I think I was too, you're a kid, you don't know. You just think that's the way it is. You don't know anything different. But you also had building snow forts and having snowball fights and going sledding and all this stuff that I love because I'd bundle up. I'd put my puffy jacket on. I'd put my toboggan on. We had those moon boots that all the kids had back in those days. And then to be sure, your mom would put a couple of bread sacks over the moon boots just to make sure that you were protected from the water from melting snow. And she'd send you out, man.
I forgot about that. Bread sacks.
Bread sacks.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. We used to, I can remember many times my dad like taking a 6-pack of beer and just tossing it in a snowdrift for a little while. It was a great way to get your ice cold beer there.
That is handy. Yeah.
I remember my parents, when I was younger, my parents were big on having dinner parties, and they would put bottles of wine, champagne, and beer. Like you'd open the sliding glass door on the patio to a snowdrift, and that was like the drinks cooler there. There would be cans of beer and bottles of wine and stuff stuck right there in the snowbank. So,
My father grew up in Fargo, and so for the family reunions, they just have their beer out in the snow because we always did it around Thanksgiving. There was already snow up to my head when I was like 13 years old. So, yeah.
I don't think we don't get cold enough long enough here to enjoy some of those aspects of it. Like there was a snow slush. I forget, like for the kids, they did this stuff called snow cream. Are either of you familiar with that? I think I may have mentioned it to you before, Brian.
I've heard of it. Yeah. It's add sugar to snow or something like that.
Sugar and like egg yolks and that, basically kind of like a custard and stuff, but you can cream custard, but I don't know if this is true or just some old hillbilly stuff my mom heard in West Virginia, but you're not supposed to do it with the first snow of the season. Apparently that's not as clean. But after you get that first snow out of the way, then you can just take a bucket of snow and you put all the seasons in it. And I remember, a bowl of we're basically talking shaved ice here, right? Like the Hawaiian shave ice stuff. So, but used to do that. And there are good cocktails that are really great for the cold weather, very warming. And, I don't really care for like a hot toddy. I think they're kind of boring, which, what's that? Whiskey, lemon, something else.
Honey, I think honey. Too. Honey in that? Yeah.
Yeah. It's warm. It's soothing in that. It's not great, but there's other stuff that can be good. Get an Irish coffee.
Irish coffee or a Mold Creek is when we get to that temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
make some Blue Creek.
I do kind of like that. I like the hardest thing about it being warm here in the South on Christmas is that's the day, or Thanksgiving, really. That's the day you eat a lot, and so you get the meat sweats and all the heat. If it were actually cold outside, you could go outside for a second and get a reprieve. But usually on Christmas Day, it's just like I'm warm. I've eaten too much. I probably drank too much. I'm like I can't cool off. You can crack it open a window, but it's 70 outside, so it's not going to do too much. The best you can do is get some ice water and try to put out the fire that way. So, I could eat less and drink less, but nobody's going to.
That's crazy talk, right? Well, the thing is we still celebrate as though it's a cold weather, like we're fatting ourselves up for hibernation or something. We're drinking 12% quads, and
that's right.
You know what I need? I need an entire roast bird carcass along with some stuffing and potatoes, and give me all the dense foods and beer and 90-degree temps.
Are we guilty of seasonal creep by doing all this talking about Christmas already? Like now I feel like we might be we may become the monsters we've railed against at this point.
I think we're appropriate, Brian, since we are on the cusp of autumn here.
A transition, yes.
And you know that it's just a speed run to the new year or Christmas. Once you cross that threshold, it's over. We're going to bump into Halloween a good bit. We haven't even talked about Halloween. So.
I was going to ask if either of you would drink a pumpkin beer this year, or are you just no?
I don't look for them, Brian. If there was something around that I'd try it. I am not in search of, and if there were other options there, I would probably choose a non-pumpkin beer.
The only reason I've been thinking about it this year is the Truck and Tap thing I did a week or two ago, where they had bourbon barrel aged Greater Pumpkin on draft for a while, and I was like, you know what, a bourbon barrel aged pumpkin thing. If I were feeling it, if the weather were a little cooler, I'm like, I'd try that. That sounds like that might almost be good, but
it's not because I helped a buddy with his Southern Tier Warlock, which is a bourbon barrel aged pumpkin ale last night, and it's not. It's it still has the spices and the pumpkin and everything I don't like about pumpkin ale. So,
from what I recall, Nate, I actually think I remember trying Warlock and also thinking it was not great. And there's people that love it, but I think that I'm like, no, this isn't for me.
Their shining star with that, when I was into it, and I was very into it, like 2012 probably. Pumpkin. That's every other variant I've ever had from them. Aside from that, I never liked as much, and I think Warlock was definitely like disappointing when I had it before.
Yeah,
I want to say that I have had a bourbon barrel aged or some kind of barrel aged pumpkin beer back when I used to drink them, and I was fairly impressed by it. But again, this is probably back in the infamous pumpkin bottle share of 2013 that destroyed all of my desire for pumpkin beers going forward.
Well, I was actually just thinking, Brian, that you mentioned that. I'm like, I don't feel as opposed to them this year as I have been in years past, because there were several years there where I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Just absolutely not. No, like we'd go and visit a brewer, and if they did a pumpkin beer, they're like, hey, I want you guys to try. I'm like, oh, God. I'm like, I don't want to tell a brewer no. I want to try it if they're proud of something. But there were years there, but I don't think I have that level of disdain for them anymore. I'm still not to the point where I want to seek any of them out necessarily, but I'd try them. I'm all about pumpkin bread, like pumpkin related pastries. And Brian, I think you and I I'd introduced you to, or we discovered crumble cookies.
Oh,
the brand Crumble. Yeah. And when I saw the pumpkin spice stuff, because everywhere is advertising that it's pumpkin spice latte season at Starbucks. That's like a holiday for some people. But I saw this, I'm like, I guarantee Crumble is doing. And sure enough, I went and looked, and they do have a pumpkin spice cake that they're doing. And
of course
I am supportive of that for sure.
Well, Tim, I think that the reason why you're not as appalled by pumpkin beers anymore is it took a decade to heal from that bottle share, but a decade has gone by, and the pain, it's scarred over to the point where like, I'm not as hurt as much. When I see it, I don't break down and cry, that sort of thing.
Time heals all wounds, Brian.
Especially pumpkin-related wounds.
All wounds. Absolutely. Well, y'all, I believe that is about time. We thank you so much for hanging out with us. We always appreciate it. And I would like to remind you, if you dig what we're doing, please do. If you're not already subscribed to the podcast, if you're just checking us out, go on your favorite app and subscribe. Share us with a friend. It's easy to do from your podcasting app, or just tell them, threaten them if you have to. We're fine with that, to listen to the show. If you really dig what we're doing, we would love it if you would support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/beerguys. We'll get you in our Discord chat. We'll send you some cool swag and stuff. And you can come hang with us for the after party after the show each week. But with that said, y'all, we hope that you all have a good week. Enjoy the fall, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.